We are back. It is the start of December, and boy, is this going to be a critical month for the 2025 Indianapolis Colts. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving and their commutes were safe and sound. Eddie Garrison, how you doing?
Doing all right. How about you, Kev?
Not bad.
I hope other people feel the same way. That first day back after, the 4 or 5 day weekend is always a little sluggish.
Kind of like the Colts' first quarter yesterday, honestly. Just a little bit of a slog, and I did think the atmosphere at times got really lively inside of Lucas Oil Stadium on Sunday, but the home team for the first time all year could not deliver. That is now all 3 C.J. Stroud games inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. He's come away victorious.
Has he lost in his career there between college and the pros?
I know. I was going to say the Big Ten championship history for Ohio State, I'm always kind of like nervous to say because I feel like at times they don't make it to that game without Michigan, but I don't know. I'm sure Stroud has played in there in his collegiate days, but in his NFL days, he's 3-0, and the AFC South lead is gone. And we just talked about the urgency of this game on both pods last week, Eddie. It was just massive. And, you're no longer playing from ahead. We mentioned the percentages involved in these 2 weeks. Houston and Jacksonville, it was, north of 90 if you win both games, about 50 if you split, and less than 20% to win the division if you lose both. So right now, the other 2 numbers are in play, the 50% or the whatever it is, 15%. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the standings, if the playoffs started today, you'd be the 6th seed, and 8, 9, and 10 have all beaten you.
Yep.
And those are the first 3 teams obviously out. So that is just where this thing can really start to snowball in a hurry for you here. Just big picture before we get into what I liked, what I didn't like. I think what is extra frustrating about the loss from yesterday, and we'll also get to the officiating. I think you guys know I'm not a huge blame the official guy, but I'm not going to sit here and ignore elephants in the room. So we'll address that here in a few. But, Eddie, I said this to people quite often over Thanksgiving. Hey, you think the Colts will win on Sunday? I go, I do. The only really big concern I have, I think I went 2016, I think was my prediction the other way, or maybe 23-20 Colts. The only real issue I thought that could turn the game, though, was Will Anderson Jr. and or Daniil Hunter making the game-changing play.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Anderson Jr. made his impact on the game, but if you would have told me walking into Lucas Oil Stadium on Sunday morning, Daniel Jones would be sacked 1 time in this game, I would say, oh, did the Colts win by 7 or 14? The fact that Jones was only sacked once, that drive ended in a punt and not, a scoop and score, not a strip sack, not something catastrophic. It's even more kind of surprising to me that the Colts lost this game, but, they made it really tough sledding for Jonathan Taylor. I think it was the least effective he's probably been all season, considering the amount of carries he got, 20 or 21. And, when they needed to make timely plays, they made them. And your defense has been on the field for way too long. It's like 160 snaps the last 2 weeks, which is just an absurd number. And right now, if you can make Daniel Jones and this passing offense have to deliver, I don't think they are proven capable of that right now. It's a big drops. You can't ignore those drops. I mean, the Downs dropped there on the 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. Downs had a wild day yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Such a roller coaster, which I'm used to him being very steady for you there.
Started and ended with the drop.
Had the drop early, had the drop there late on that final drive. So before we get to the officiating aspect, just your overall thoughts, Eddie.
It felt like this was, the first game of the 4 losses where you can look at it and be like, yeah, the Colts lost this one. Because, if you look at the others, it's like a couple plays here and there. I mean, it's still the same way, but it wasn't the self-inflicted gunshot wounds that got you yesterday. And I still think that, there's some people that will view this as an optimistic point of view, like, hey, this team just has to learn how to win these games because, let's face it, Daniel Jones hasn't been in a lot of these situations in his career just because the Giants were not good when he was there outside of the 1 year where he won the playoff game. And now you just have to learn how to make some of these plays at the end. Like the defense has to learn how to make some plays at the end of ball games to get off the field. They got to, prevent touchdowns and hold them to field goals type of stuff. The offense has to, find ways to move the ball in the fourth quarter when it's through the air because you can't run the football or you're playing from behind. So all those things are learning opportunities for this team. And I go back to, was it Travarius Ward after the loss, or Travarius Ward after the loss to Kansas City is like, hey, we needed this. And like, I feel like these last two losses for the Colts are hopefully learning lessons for them that they can correct in the near future so that they can maintain a spot in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely an element, and Twitter questions probably lead us down this path, but there's an element, Eddie, that you are an 8-4 football team on December 1st. If you would have said that on September 1st, you would have said, where do I sign up for it? But there is also the aspect of you're a really 8-4 team. I don't think there's any denying that. The injury luck, I think, has finally kind of caught up to you a little bit here with Buckner's status and obviously the Sauce Gardner injury. We know in all likelihood they're both going to be out for Sunday. The kicker questions continue to be there as well. So, and your offense just isn't. You don't feel as optimistic about it, obviously, as you did earlier in the season. So before I get into what I didn't like, what I liked, Eddie, let's hit on the officiating. When I break down the one drive that I think everybody wants to talk about, let's start with what I want to see the NFL do, because there's all this conversation about penalties and the enforcement of penalties. And I think when it comes to football, especially, and the fast-moving nature to it, I think it's very difficult to properly write the letter of the law for holdings, for pass interference penalties in particular. I think those are naturally gray area judgment calls, and it's really difficult to police that in a consistent manner. So when I go back to yesterday, where my biggest issue is, and again, this is a league-wide thing, I don't necessarily blame the officiating crew on Sunday for it. I don't get why delay of game is not black and white. I don't get why that is not a reviewable call, and B, why is delay of game not treated like the shot clock in an NBA game? Why is there not a red light that goes on?
A foghorn?
Seriously. Yeah, I mean, horn it up if you have to. How about a little buzzer on all the officials? Or just the head official if you need to. And when that goes off, if the ball hasn't been snapped, you simply blow the play dead and 5-yard penalty. You get 40 seconds, not 41. I don't get why we have had this unwritten rule in the NFL, because we see this weekly. You see it probably, 3 to 5 times a game. Teams snap the ball with 0 on the play clock. And again, I don't understand why this unwritten rule has all of a sudden been accepted. I maybe because there's tenths of a second aren't on the play clock. Well, then put tenths of a second on the play clock. That, to me, is where the big gripe I have in that particular play, because it was blatantly after 0.
Oh, yeah.
That was, if you could challenge it, which, again, to me, challenge black and white. You can't challenge the judgment calls. You can't challenge the gray area calls. I get that. But that, to me, is a very, was there 1 second or was there not 1 second? So that is where I would start. When you see the pool report after the game, I guess to take people behind the curtain, I think one of the stupidest things the NFL does is the pool report. So the NBA has the 2-minute report. Eddie, you're very familiar with it. The 2-minute report happens the day after the game. And what the NBA does is they literally evaluate every single call in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, they go back and watch the entirety of the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter.
What they got right.
Yep.
What they got wrong. And then they say that in the report. It's a very straightforward thing, to be honest with you.
It is.
The NFL pool report is the exact opposite. It is so stupid. I am all for transparency. I don't call this transparency at all. So basically how it works is the home team has a designated media member that gets to ask the question. So Joel Erickson, in his professional manner, like Joel is, he walks down to us, right after the series and says, okay, I feel like, this is worthy of a pool report. What questions would you like for me to ask? And so Mike Chappell, who I sit next to him, and I are kind of thinking about one. And I go, Joel, will you ask if delay of game is reviewable? I'm pretty sure it's not. But that's really the only real question I have. Because when you ask these questions, and again, I'm pretty sure Joel, I think he just calls the official and then the official. It's not like they're sitting in a room breaking down film.
No.
It's not like Joel can ask follow-ups necessarily. It is very different from a back and forth press conference manner to these questions. So when you read the pool report on the Kenny Moore pass interference penalty, all it says is the official had a grab at the top of the route.
On his hand or arm or whatever it was.
But like it doesn't even say that much detail. Like all it says is grab at top of route. That's what the official saw. Well, again, in the 20-minute aftermath of the game, that's all he's going to say. Of course, the official saw something. It's not like he didn't see anything. And, if you go back and watch the replay, Eddie, I think I got closer to my 5th grade girlfriend at a school dance than Kenny Moore got to Xavier Hutchinson on that pass interference penalty there. So, that to me was an egregious call. Frankly, on a scale of 1 to 10, I call it a 9.5. I also thought the Alec Pierce pass interference penalty was a bad call on I think it was the previous possession.
Yep.
I mean, that to me, that ball almost hit the Colts cheerleaders.
I like what Phil Simms said on Sunday Night Football last night. He said it was closer to the hot dog vendor than it was Alec Pierce.
Seriously. And so, again, where is catchable? What is not catchable? That to me is just like, you get in these judgment calls, and they're difficult to, I think, properly police. As far as a miss extra point, I know we've discussed this. I think it's a lot harder than it looks, especially because Fairbairn's kick is hooking. So if you're the official underneath there, you're like, wait, did that hook on the inside of it or not? And Steratore did a nice job, I thought, on CBS explaining how the entire ball's got to be inside of the outside edge of the goalpost.
Yes.
Which, again, you watch the replay. The camera angle isn't perfect, but when you watch it, it definitely does not look like the entire ball is inside the goalpost.
No.
Now, if you extend the goalpost to the roof, does a hooking Fairbairn kick there hit off the left upright and go in? Who knows? Someone said, how about you just shoot a laser beam up from the goalpost to the top? I mean, something I think needs to be done because, these sorts of situations, hell, I can remember the IU bowl game from a few years ago having a similar situation against Tennessee. I think it was Tennessee, maybe it was Duke. But that also involves, again, a lot of gray area. So, I don't know. As far as did it cost you the game, I mean, obviously the Kenny Moore penalty was a big play. At the end of the game, maybe you're driving for just a field goal there versus down 4 needing a touchdown. Again, I'm largely a person that has accepted inaccuracy in officiating. I know that's not how a lot of people think, frankly. I think I'm probably in the minority of that. And I largely believe calls even out. The Colts, and trust me, the Colts internally know that they got away with Chris Lamons on the hold of Trey McBride in the Arizona game. And if that flag is thrown, Arizona probably wins the game. Like, it just... So I'm not one that is going to fret too much about it, but I'm getting a million questions about it and I understand people have them. So those are my thoughts. What do you got?
All right, let's dive into the actual game in terms of what you did like and what you did not like. With the Colts losing, we always start with what you did not like. We'll start here because it happened first in the game. You've got the Sauce Gardner calf strain. It's likely going to sideline him a couple weeks. The severity in terms of the grade of that strain still to be determined, which will determine whether or not the team will place him on injured reserve, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the A word is what you first think of, Eddie, and it seems like that has been avoided. We'll get further clarity on it, but when you're in this market and he goes down like that, and you obviously are thinking to yourself, oh boy, because if that was the A word, I mean, think about it. I mean, he's out all next year, right? That's a November 30th, torn Achilles. So, and then you start thinking about the trade and all of it. Calf strain, best case scenario, it's Kenny Moore situation, 3 weeks. Now, I didn't think Kenny, in the immediate aftermath of the injuries, granted Kenny's was on the road. I mean, Sauce was moving really gingerly on that boot. I think they end up getting him some walking crutches there for the second half. So, 3 weeks would be what? Jacksonville, Seattle, San Francisco. He'd be back for the 2 divisional games, I guess, to end it. And then again, that's best case scenario. And, I think when you're playing corner, and I feel this certainly watching the game yesterday, I would argue there's no position on the football field, Eddie, that is more susceptible to the average human noticing you're 1 degree off than corner.
Mm-hmm.
You just get exposed so quick. And I bring that up to point to Javarius Ward yesterday. And even a little bit to Kenny Moore II.
Mm-hmm.
Now, right now, I think Mooney, in coming back from the injury, has been a step slow. And again, when you play corner, your step gets noticed a whole lot more. And I think Kenny Moore is one of the soundest, most impressive football players I've watched, frankly. And it's a hell of a story. I've said that many times. And so I hold him to such a high standard when he's not his usually sticky self. I find myself being, wait, was that really number 23 in coverage there? Like, no. I mean, because you're just used to him making all the plays.
Mm-hmm.
And again, being right there. And even him right now, I feel like it's just a tick off from his normal Kenny self. So
even in that Kansas City game too.
Right. I'm kind of going back the last 2 weeks, basically, and saying all this. So, I bring that up to say, A, those are your guys. Obviously, right now you have to lean on heavily without Sauce. And then B, Sauce, when he comes back, what does he look like? Because obviously he'll get tested in a hurry there. And you just can't ignore the magnitude of the trade. And not to rehash everything, but when you make a trade of that significance, the goalposts do change. That's just the nature of trading 2 first-round picks plus A.D. Mitchell. That's how things shift, alter. You push more chips into the middle of the table. You need more short-term results with a few more longer-term questions about the resources that you have available to you. You weren't saying, hey, we feel like we're a team that's going to be fighting for a playoff spot. No. You said at the time, we feel like we're a team that'll be fighting for the 1 seed.
Mm-hmm.
And that obviously has shifted here in the last month. So, those are just kind of my overall thoughts. Sauce-related, corner-related. Eddie, I know you and I are on the same page here. I don't understand Mekhi Blackman still out-snapping Jalen Jones.
I don't either. Like, you go back and watch that game, and, like, there's so many times where they're running at him, and he looks like he has no interest in tackling. Like the Woody Marks play, you have to come up with the stop or just try to slow him down. And there's little to no effort. And the Houston Texans can go on and, run out the clock there and win the game at the end. And then if you go back and watch the Nico Collins touchdown run, they run to his side. And he looks like a toddler walking through a grocery store when they've lost their parents. Like he
very good analogy.
He just looks. It's just like, I'm just gonna flail my arms out and just kind of look around and see where I'm supposed to go. Oh, there goes Nico right by me for a touchdown.
Which I'd rather have that than the yell. Well, as soon as the kids start screaming, then people are trying to call CPS on you.
Yeah, and of course, then there's the coverage issues as well. It's just like I just like you said, I don't get it either.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to explain. So, the injury, obviously, when it first happened, looked awful, and it seems like disaster has been avoided. Achilles has always been one that I feel like you can have a general idea of what it is pretty quickly after the injury. He like the fact that he initially went in the blue tent, I thought was better than him going straight to the locker room.
And the fact that he came out of the locker room to be on the sideline, right, I think is
still
even better.
First half.
Yeah.
So I know some further imaging was going to be done. He's really not a guy that's had a lot of injury history. So it looks like he's going to miss some time. We'll see how much.
Let's get into what else that you did not like. They're good versus the Colts good. I thought Nico Collins once again was exceptional.
I'm getting some T.Y. Hilton vibes from him.
Yeah.
In this series, we have seen wideouts dominate games, and I just felt like he continues to do that. His touchdown run, you just alluded to there. He's 5 for 98, made several big plays, and I mean he is their guy. When I know Dalton Schultz had death by 1,000 paper cuts, and actually thought the Higgins kid made a couple big plays for them as well.
Listen to these last 4 games after yesterday: 7, 146 and a touchdown, 9 for 195 and a touchdown, 6 for 117, 5 for 98 and a rushing touchdown.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary numbers because I don't feel like the Texans have much else from a potent standpoint offensively. I really don't. And yet they're able to do that, and he is able to do that as well. So, again, I think that is a frustrating element to Sunday is so much I think was rooted in will Nico Collins impact the game at a high level. And Nico puts up good numbers. I don't want to deny that, but I mean we're not talking whatever Puka Nacua or Jackson Smith and Jigba here. So that was definitely a thing that I did not like from yesterday.
Anything else you want to add into this?
I should have mentioned kicker. Eddie, I was more serious than probably maybe you took it or our listeners took it. But remember, like last week, I think it was last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, when I asked you the question, would you rather have Matt Gay or Michael Badgley?
Yeah, I think, somewhere around that, yeah.
Yeah. Basketball analogy it up. Michael Badgley's not a three-point shooter, right? He's not a long-distance kicker.
No.
So that means, to steal the Chris Ballard phrase, you have to hit the layups. And right now, he is stone cold bricking the layups.
Yep.
3 missed extra points in 7 weeks. To put that into context, before Badgley's arrival here last month, you have to go back to 2020 to find the last time the Colts have missed 3 extra points.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking total, not one player, not one season, total. It's about 150 attempts you have to go back to find 3 missed extra points.
Yeah.
And he's missed 3 in whatever it is, 20-some attempts. Here, and let's look at where the misses have been. Yesterday, Dome. Germany, a 2-mile-per-hour wind. LA, LA's, did the smog push it left or right? I mean, that's about as controlled of a climate as you're going to have, 80-degree day. Like, the Colts have a kicker problem, again. And this one is not injury-related, of course. So, I think you have to do the tryout thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, backup kicker, I get the bar is low. And lower, I should say. But the bar should still be the extra point layup.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if Badgley was just doing that and Shane Steichen had to go for every, 3rd and 8 from the 38-yard line, fine.
4th and 8 or 3rd and 8?
Sorry, 4th and 8. That's part of life when you have to go to a backup kicker. But to have the missed extra points, and that's why I asked it, the Matt Gay thing in all seriousness, because Matt Gay didn't miss extra points. Remember last year, Matt Gay did not miss a kick inside of 50 yards for you. He just missed all the north of 50. He bricked all the threes. He made every mid-range jumper, and he made every foul shot, and he made every layup for you. So, and think about the impact of yesterday, man. If you make that extra point, then you just treat so many of future drives differently from that. So, I don't know. I get a weird feeling like the Colts' urgency about this situation is not at the level that I clearly have it, but like missed extra points, man, people do not miss them.
I mean, it ended up at the end costing you a chance to make it a tie game to go to overtime.
1,000%. So, yeah.
I have 2 other things I want to bring up to see your thoughts on it, Kev, before we get into what you did like. How about the 4th and 1? You need a couple inches. You go Daniel. Now, we've seen a lot of teams do this recently. They're taking their tight end or their fullback if they have a fullback. The Colts do it with Tyler Warren, botches the snap right between the wickets. Jonathan Taylor has nowhere to go pretty much after he picks up the loose ball. Turnover on downs. I said at the time, and I still stand by it, I would have kicked it and took the points there.
Really?
Yes. With the way that your offense had been operating prior to that, you needed to take advantage of every possible moment to get points rather than trying to risk it to get that touchdown. I understand it's a couple inches. You're like, hey, if you feel like you have your O-line's, doing a great job blocking up front, go for it. I get it. But when you're going up against a defense like that with a team who has struggled offensively with C.J. Stroud, at least quarterbacking them, I just felt like it was a time where you needed to get points on the board.
Yeah, I am, 4th down in terms of the aggression. I'm not like, hey, 4th and 2s, 4th and 3s, you're always go, go, go in those situations like I think Steichen mostly is. I would say 4th and inches, though, I'm probably always team go. Now, again, there's, if you're up 7 with 2 minutes to go in the game and you're trying to stretch it to 2 scores, obviously you would kick it then. I've heard from a lot of people that Shane Steichen is an idiot. Why is he getting too cute? Blah, blah, blah. So let's, I guess, focus on this play for a second. first off, Daniel Jones' injury is why the Colts didn't run the QB sneak.
I made mention of it last week on the pod because I was like, there were so many of those 3rd-and-1s, 4th-and-1s last week against Kansas City where you felt like, all right, well, let's go to the quarterback sneak because nobody had been able to stop it with Daniel Jones, and instead it was always a slow developing run with Jonathan Taylor, and they got stuffed.
Exactly. Now, what we have seen in recent years, particularly in the college world and also in the NFL world, hell, Houston did it several times, we are seeing the tight end sneak.
Yep.
Tyler Warren did it, frankly, at Penn State. Oh boy, Iron Eagle, J.J. Watt again for the Colts coming up on
third time this year, right?
Yeah, they're starting to do a lot of games. You're surprised Colts are favored in that game?
A little bit.
Slight favorite. It was going to open up at 3, but I think it's down to like 1.5. I have no issue with the play call. None. Zero issue whatsoever with the play call. Again, we get into this mode with coaches, GMs all the time. Everything Chris Ballard does stinks or is great. Everything Shane Steichen does stinks or is great. Can we not identify these situations isolated and not have to just group everything together into, who that person is? That to me is just seems like such a logical thinking, but doesn't happen here. The blame to me just goes from a misexecution on the snap. I mean, Bortolini and Warren, clearly there was a screw up. Point blank. Okay, Jones can't QB sneak. What's your best option now? Do you give it to Taylor? Well, giving it to Taylor, they're probably going to sell out on that. A la Kansas City last week. It's not necessarily a guarantee. I think later in the game they ran that Taylor kind of like a little not an end around, but a little sweep off tackle, and ended up getting it there. You could do that, but again, that's not a guarantee. To me, my general thought in short yardage in today's football is I would sneak it, push it every single time. Your percent, like what the Colts did to Houston late in the game, is a miracle that they stopped them.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is insane. That
Neville Gallimore blew up both of those.
Gallimore, I thought Grover was in there. I thought Ebicom was in there as well. But yeah, Gallimore was at the center of so much of that. Like, that stuff is just a miracle. But like, my team right now, I'd be doing it every single time. So to me, that is not too. I mean, he brought Warren in motion. I think the initial thought there is, hey, by putting Jones and Taylor in the backfield, they're going to think that we motion Warren a lot. They're not going to think Warren's necessarily going to stop under center. They can't pinch their defensive line in that quickly. I got zero issue with it. Zero issue. Now, again, big picture with Steichen, you lost a monumental home game. Good versus good. Their good beat your good. Their defense beat your offense. So, like, you could have Steichen issues, obviously, with the game itself, but on that play call in particular, Eddie, no.
And then here's a very, I don't know, it's very nitpicky of me, but I also think it's very, very, very underrated. On that drive where the Colts turned it over on downs in the fourth quarter, I was, in the moment, I was livid at the fact that they were so content with letting the clock run down to the 2-minute warning. And it came back, honestly, to bite them in the butt a little bit, just because of the fact that you don't run a play before that. It would have been your second down play. Instead, you have to run 3 plays after the 2-minute warning. You could have used that extra time on the back half of that 2-minute warning to kind of save yourself to maybe get the ball again. And it ended up costing the Colts in the long run, because I always think when you're the losing team and you're driving, I think it's the worst possible scenario to let that clock tick all the way down to the 2-minute warning like they did, because the clock is your friend. You need as much time of it as you can, not the least amount of time as possible. And I get you still have all 3 timeouts, but I still feel like there was 2:36 left when Jonathan Taylor on that first down play ended. You let the entire clock drain out. You get to the 2-minute warning. I just don't like that. Like, that's just me. That's my preference, but I don't know. What do you think about that whole situation?
That was interesting. I might need to go back and watch it. I definitely didn't have that thought during the game. I don't have that big of a gripe on it, to be honest with you. But I definitely hear you out and like where you're coming from. There's certainly a push and pull there, and we've seen Steichen. He is much more prone to, I don't want to give the team another chance. Kansas City followed a very similar script last week against Indianapolis. Should we score here at the end of regulation? It was one of those kind of awkward moments there that you ran into. Is there a little bit of defensive fear if you give the ball back to Stroud? Fairbairn has made long field goals in his career for game winners. part of that is there. I guess I'm just more upset that Woody Marks ran over you on second and long there to ice the game. But I can listen to it, Eddie, but I probably don't agree with it.
Let's get into what you did like. Alec Pierce, the Colts' new wide receiver 1.
He is the top wideout on the team. Period. He's the most threatening wideout. He's the most consistent wideout, and the route tree is becoming a thing. I mean, it became a little bit of a running joke between me and some of the media members, but for a while there, early on in Pierce's career, I would tweet out on Pierce deep balls, even if he didn't catch it, even if it ended in pass interference. Good things happen when you target Alec Pierce deep. They just do. Like, more often than not, it's a good thing. He catches the football. How great was that throw and catch by Jones to him on the touchdown? I mean, that man operates in claustrophobic areas. How great of a hide and seeker do you think he was back in the day? Just thriving in little small crevices. And then late in the game, you get the panic. You bring him in motion. You get Kalen Bullock, the safety, running down on him. Now it's a safety one-on-one, and 3rd and 19. You throw it up, and you obviously get the gift of the penalty there when the ball was thrown out of bounds, but you still are able to get that call there. He's dynamic. He's proven to be more consistent. And, in the last few weeks, Eddie, I've said to me, Taylor needs X amount of touches, in particular X amount of touches in the second halves, and Alec Pierce has turned into a player where he needs X amount of touches.
Yeah. Because
the threat of him going deep has just turned the end breaker with Pierce into almost a layup. And right now, from a second-level guy, that's the route that I trust the most, because he does have the respective safeties over the top there. So, I mean, hell, they put him back there to defend the Hail Mary. How great was that?
Yeah.
And he knocked it down. It just, we've had this debate for several months, and I've said to you since the start of camp, if it comes down to a Pierce or a Pittman financially, it's Pierce. It's the one that is harder to replace.
Mm-hmm.
And he's that. And he's younger, which you probably can't ignore that either.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add in this area, or are you ready for the Twitter questions?
No, I think that's for the most part. Grover Stewart, a huge bat down there early on.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a 4-point play. I thought the Cam Bynum interception was so needed. Obviously it's like, well, no shit, Kevin. Turnovers are always needed. But, that first quarter was such a slog. And remember, what happened the play before the Bynum pick?
Was that the turnover on downs, was it?
Yeah, Warren has the muff.
Yeah.
And so, again, it just felt like Lucas Oil Stadium needed something there. So, outstanding, I thought, in just a timely play there from Bynum.
Twitter questions this pod. We'll start with Creighton. As bad as the loss this was, thanks refs, I do feel there is some bright spots. Do you agree that going into next week, the offense did seem to catch some rhythm throughout the game against Houston that we haven't seen in the past 2 weeks? Maybe this is something we can carry into next week against Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, Eddie. When you look at it, you obviously had that really slow start, the 2 3-and-outs, and then you punted, I think, after 5 plays on the 3rd drive. If you look at the next 6 drives, they got to Houston territory every single drive, and they got at least 2 first downs every single drive. Now, they obviously didn't finish off those drives.
Yeah.
But still, you did move it at a decent manner. Now, I think where I struggle to, though, go full-on kind of, oh, wow, there's reasons for massive optimism. Now you're going on the road for 2 straight. And also, I probably view Houston as the least fearsome offense of the bunch.
Mm-hmm.
I just, on paper, if you would have laid out the difficulty of these final 7 games coming back from the bye week, Kansas City you probably wouldn't put at the bottom of the list, just given their history. But still, record-wise, they were the only team at 500 or worse. And then a home game versus Houston, you might put second on that list. And lo and behold, you've lost both of them. Now, again, both games, coin flip games. If you make one play defensively in Kansas City on the 90-yard drive, perhaps you win that game. If Josh Downs doesn't drop it on 3rd and 9 yesterday, who knows what happens. But still, they are losses, and now the margin for error is really shrinking. You've added another injury. and you're going on the road for 2 straight.
Yeah.
And like, look, Jacksonville, as much as Jacksonville can be rocking, it should be rocking on Sunday.
Yep.
That should be one of the more notable home games they've had in quite a while. And Seattle might be playing for the 1 seed coming up here in a few weeks. So that, I think, is where I hear you out, Creighton. And again, the Colts did move it a little bit better. Again, they didn't finish off those drives, but they did definitely move it better. But still, it's just hard for me to reach for that glass half full right now.
Yeah. And Seattle's defense is no joke either. Like, they got dudes all over the field that make plays.
Yeah, Mike McDonald. I know Shane holds in really high regard as well. Yeah, that's your toughest game left.
Yeah. Jake is starting to believe this Colts team is not much different than last year's. The Colts can beat the weaker teams and lose consistently against teams with a winning record. Offense is flat and the defense is on the field too much. Is Jake overreacting?
Yeah, about the defense. Again, I think it's like 160-some defensive snaps the last 2 weeks, which is just wild. Jake, I'll go back to something that we talked about a month ago, Eddie. At that point, the Colts had answered the questions presented to them. But what I try to quickly point out, newer, harder questions are about to be asked.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, they have not handled those well. Now, the beauty of the NFL is you get 5 more chances to flip it. It's the hardest schedule left, but you get 5 more opportunities, and 3 of them are in your division. So, that obviously is heavily, heavily into your control. So that I think is a huge, huge question. If you want to point to early in the year, did you surprise some people with Daniel Jones a little bit? And then, such a change, from the defensive system, did that surprise teams early on in the year, along with that schedule? That probably is something that is true, but these questions are just more difficult, and so far you're not answering.
Here's a question I hadn't really thought of from Garrett. Do you think the loss of DeForest Buckner has hurt the offense as much as it hurt the defense? The defense right now feels similar to what existed underneath Gus Bradley, not allowing big plays, but giving up long drives, hampering the stamina of the defense and putting more pressure on the offense. This team all of a sudden feels way too similar to teams of years past.
Yeah, Garrett, I think that's a really good point. Time of possession, it's not gospel by any means, but I think it's something that is flipped. I mean, Eddie, think back to the Kansas City game. You think Buckner makes one of those 3rd down stops?
Hopefully. If not, he's helping the other guys on the edge to get home by having the attention on him.
Right.
That's been the biggest problem, I think, in the last 2 weeks is they just can't get any sort of pressure on the quarterback.
I've said this before, but there's no more disappointing aspect in the Ballard era than the edge pass rush. It's unbelievable how unthreatening it is.
Yeah.
It's just like engage the left tackle, hug your grandma on Thanksgiving, and move on to the next play. That's seemingly what it is every snap. Not to get too in the weeds, but we talked about the Ashton Dulin injury last week. It felt like Houston was a 1st down or 2 better than you in special teams yesterday. And again, those are just little hidden yardages. In the 2016 game, 6 yards here, 7 yards there, 4 yards here. It just adds up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought they were a little better than you yesterday in that area. But, yeah, I think it's a great point that Garrett brings. In these 1-possession games, Atlanta obviously went your way, and then the next 2 don't go your way. I do think Buckner's just pure presence could have easily been the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it is. I think, as it hurt the offense as much as the defense, it's all complementary, obviously. I can't sit here and say, blame the offense for DeForest Buckner's absence, but everything is largely tied together.
Colts are now 3-4 in 1-score games on the year.
Is that right?
I think so. If I remember correctly, you got obviously lost his last 2 weeks to Houston, Kansas City, lost to Pittsburgh, and lost to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So 4.
Wins? Arizona.
Denver.
And
Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's something that I guess monitor down the stretch, just because when you get into the playoffs, most of these games are going to be decided by one score. 2 questions left, one from Craig. What's most frustrating is the game being dictated by the horrid refs. I feel like this is happening more and more every week, to the point it's not even worth watching. Give me a reason for hope for the rest of the season, KB. The schedule is tough enough, let alone dealing with crappy calls every week.
Where do you side on the you as a sports fan and officiating?
In terms of what?
Like, do you hate officials? Are you accepting of it?
In the middle, like like during the game, I'm like, what the F?
Sure. Yeah.
Like, how can you make that call? But it's just,
right.
At the same time, like, I get it.
Yeah, I don't know why. I've largely accepted like human error in sports when it comes to officials.
But I am never one to blame the officials for a loss. Never.
Yeah, I was really tested in this manner. The Notre Dame Texas A&M game earlier in the year. If you remember that game, Eddie, Texas A&M converts a 4th and goal.
I remember.
And there is as blatant of a holding penalty as you could imagine on Donovan Heinisch on that 4th and goal.
It's your opinion.
And it certainly is. And yeah, I don't. Again, I definitely was like, what the bleep in the moment. But yeah, I don't know. I woke up Sunday and I was frustrated, and then I thought to myself, yeah, there were probably a million other things on why Notre Dame lost that game, including a missed extra point, as fittingly as that sounds there. So again, I know there's a lot of people that think that's a ludicrous thought from me. But I don't know. In my fandom, I've just chosen to accept it. I will agree with Craig. I thought the Chiefs game was very poor officiating on both sides of it.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday, I don't know. Houston had a lot of penalties early. How many did they end up having? I don't know how the penalty game evened out in the end. But, obviously I thought the Kenny Moore call was bad, and I thought the delay of game was more of a league-wide issue. I don't get why the NFL doesn't black and white it up.
9 for 85 for Houston, 5 for 33 for the Colts.
Gosh, it's another frustrating element to the game. They have 52 more yards of penalties than you.
Mm-hmm.
And you lose a one-score game. So, I don't know. I mean, the Colts got away with one with Chris Lamons in Arizona. I have chosen to accept it. Probably doesn't make it wrong or right, but that's how I look at it. As officiating down, I don't know. I stayed up and watched that whole Denver-Washington game. There were some wild calls in that game. Boy, talk about Denver just playing with fire every week.
Mm-hmm.
Seemingly that defense makes big play after big play.
Reminds me of that Tennessee Titans team that finished first in the AFC a few years ago with Tannehill and Henry.
Yep.
Yeah, just bound for a bad day in the playoffs. Daniel has a scenario A and a scenario B type question, Kevin. So I'll rattle both of these off for you. Scenario A, Colts continue to look mediocre but pull out 2 to 3 wins and get into the playoffs as a division winner, but have optimism with DeForest Buckner, Sauce Gardner, and Ashton Doolin back as they host a playoff game and make it to the divisional round with anyone's guess of what can happen after that. Scenario B, the Colts continue to putter out and lose 3 of their 4 final games, blow the division, and miss the playoffs. This leads into a nightmare offseason where everyone and things are up for debate. Is Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen retained? Does Jim Bob Cooter and/or Lou Anarumo leave? Who is re-signed in terms of Daniel Jones, Braden Smith, Alec Pierce, Kwity Paye, Nick Cross? What happens with Anthony Richardson? Seems like this sends the franchise and fans back down the rabbit hole of pessimism and questioning the culture and state of the team.
Oh boy. Yeah, I don't know if I'm quite ready for the old big picture, state of the union, if you will, but it is a question that I get. The month of December's here, and you can't totally ignore it.
It's also a fascinating discussion, too.
Tremendous discussion. Yeah, I mean, trust me. Me and some of the media members were having it yesterday up in the press box. I guess just some overall thoughts on Daniel's question before I kind of get into, I think, what everybody really is curious about. Right now, obviously, 2 would be the obvious choice, or letter B here, given how reeling they are. I'm still not sold on Jacksonville, by the way. I know they lived off turnovers early in the season. They've shown a little bit more here as of late, but I'm not overly sold on Jacksonville. We'll see how that plays out, of course, coming up this weekend. So, now the question becomes, how does Carly Ursay Gordon view it?
Is it because of Liam Cohen's Duve? Oh.
I do think I like Liam Cohen a little bit here. And I guess if you start with Ballard, Eddie, the question largely revolves around this. Does a season, I should say a half season, does a half season of really quality football erase 8 years of mediocrity before that? Like, that's largely the Ballard evaluation.
Yeah.
And again, how much of it do we do the post-CB, pre-CB? We've done the AD, BC thing before, half jokingly, half serious with Ballard. Do you think the goalposts have changed at all post-Sauce Gardner trade? And I'm asking that more from a Carly or St. Gordon aspect to it. Did that heighten the need and the urgency for short term? Also, did it heighten the need and urgency for her to say, hey, Chris, by allowing you to do this trade, you're the guy? I mean, he's due a new contract, right, after 2026?
Yeah, after next year.
And then the bigger question is just, are you largely kicking the can down the road? I'm trying to think of a decent analogy within our market, Eddie. But, would you view this season at all? Because I think it's really hard to group Ballard and Steichen together. I think it's really difficult. I think it's a little unfair to Shane Steichen to do that. I just think 3 years versus 9 years is too, in football years, that's an insane amount of difference.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if I were running the show, I'd probably want to group my GM and head coach together because I think it's the best thing for cohesive decision-making and roster building and all of that. But I guess to try to make a local analogy of it, if the Colts go 3-2 down the stretch, make the play, right here, right now, they are the 6th seed in the playoffs. Okay. Exactly how it looks right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they lose in round 1. Are you bringing everybody back?
Everybody is in regime or?
Regime, yeah, I mean, pillars, quarterback, head coach, GM.
Well, you've made your bed on the quarterback aspect, so.
Head coach, GM?
I will say I think it's trending more towards with Daniel Jones, considering the last handful of weeks of the franchise tag versus an extension. And Pierce will be the guy that gets the contract versus the tag now. Just because you need to see.
Yeah, I can definitely hear you on that.
Which guy the quarterback is. In terms of the head coach and GM, I think, yes, you just got to bring him back because, as you noted, and as we've noted a handful of times on the pod, Ballard's got the 1 year left. Hey, you go into this year, it's your final year in your deal. What are you going to do as the GM? Are you going to try to make some magic happen and, to help bolster whatever it is you need? Is it a true, number one receiver? Is it somebody who can consistently, threaten the quarterback? We'll see.
Yeah, and then you also get into, I think, to a couple of other different combos. Again, to local and analogy it up a little bit, would this be like Mike Woodson making the tournament in year 4 as a 9 seed?
Yeah, probably.
Is it just Band-Aid on a bullet hole?
Yeah, probably.
Is that, or do you really feel like there's been tangible changes and it is going to be different? Yeah, I think that's a really hard thing, to be clear, to decide, but that's, what Carly or St. Gordon's going to have to look at. Or are you just kicking the can down the road?
Mm-hmm.
I guess is how you view it, because I feel like so many people view the 2025 Colts and bringing everybody back as, do you make the playoffs or do you not?
Mm-hmm.
Like that black and white, which is kind of wild to sit here on December 1st and be like, that's the difference between the Colts going 3-2 or 2-3.
But if I told you that in training camp, what would you have said?
I know. I was never one that thought the playoff appearance automatically meant everybody was back. I think how it looks has to be factored in.
Okay.
And there's part of me that's like, well, Daniel Jones looked better than I thought. So, and again, quarterback is important, very important. So maybe there is a little bit more optimism. But if you continue to lose games at the critical juncture of the season, like you have in recent years, is that a negative knock?
Right.
On it. So, and let's say you go 2-3 down the stretch. and you just limp in or just miss, then like the momentum for next year isn't maybe necessarily, it's not like the arrow's pointing up.
Right.
Whereas if you reverse these 4 months of the season, maybe you would feel differently about it. Like if Jones really struggled out of the gate, but then played great football down the stretch, and you just didn't have enough time to get back in it, how would that be viewed? So again, I think it is a great debate. You could go in a ton of different directions with it. It is, I'll go back to kind of what I said at the start of the answer, though. It is kind of wild that we have 8 years and 3 months of a Chris Ballard resume, and we're sitting here saying it could come down to a 2-3 or a 3-2 close to the month of December.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one game is going to define his 9 years as a GM. That is, it's like a wild sample size.
Yeah.
When you break it down.
You could almost say this game on Sunday against Jacksonville's your season.
Yeah, I mean, I said it. I don't know if I said it to you on Monday's pod, Eddie, and I know we didn't do the Wednesday pod together. I just did it by myself. But I said on the Wednesday pod, it felt like one of the biggest games of the Steichen era.
Oh, yeah.
Because the first year, you're still honeymoon phasing it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, obviously, week 18, win and get in is huge. But, like, it's still the honeymoon phase with Gardner Minshew. Last year, you could point to the Denver game, certainly. But, again, that Denver game, you're on the road. It wasn't like a lock that you would – it's not a divisional game. It wasn't a lock that if you won that game, all of a sudden everything, Ducks were in a row. Whereas this one was home game, divisional, and now it's 2 in a row on the road.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, to your point, you can obviously save a ton of face by getting it done here on Sunday in Jacksonville. All right, brother, should we do it on Wednesday?
Are you talking about recording a pod?
As opposed to what else?
I don't know.
I mean, boy, nothing says the first Monday back from Thanksgiving like that. How about that ending by Eddie Garrison? Unbelievable.
Giants-Patriots tonight. You going to watch?
Yeah, well, I'll probably watch Patriots a little bit more, but then I'll flip over. Yeah, it's kind of wild. Then if New England wins, they head to their bye week and go in, 12? Would they be 12-2? 11-2?
11-2, yeah.
Wild, man. Yeah, I don't know if anybody really cares about this, but I do think yesterday's loss probably ended your chances at a 1 seed. And if New England wins tonight, that would probably definitely end it. So, all right, he's Eddie Garrison. I'm Kevin Bowen. Everybody have a great week. We'll talk to you Wednesday.